Please welcome to the stage the president of Bmcc, Tribeca Performing Arts Center's Board of Directors, Jamie O'Donnell.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to Tribeca Performing Arts Center. We're delighted this evening once again to have TimesTalks present a special evening for us tonight. Bmcc is the largest higher education institution in the City University of New York system, with over 26,000 students from 155 countries. We are pleased to have the Performing Arts Center here tonight. The Performing Arts Center has been the longest operating venue here in Lower Manhattan when it comes to the arts. We encourage you to check out our website, tribecapac.org, for additional upcoming events. Thank you, and please welcome TimesTalks Creative Director, Michelle Gray.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Gray, the Creative and Programming Director of the New York Times live conversation series, TimesTalks. For over 20 years, TimesTalks has paired New York Times journalists with the brightest and boldest creative minds from the fields of art, politics, social justice, film, theater, and of course, music. I'm delighted to welcome you to tonight's event with Ryan Tedder, the Grammy... He's got a lot of accolades. So the Grammy Award-winning singer, songwriter, producer, and founder of the multi-platinum selling band OneRepublic. In conversation with the Grammy-nominated multi-platinum powerhouse trio, Jonas Brothers. Which I think, as you all might know, consists of Kevin Jonas, Joe Jonas, and Nick Jonas. Tedder wrote the hit song Sucker with the Jonas Brothers, which is their first song together in 6 years. Together, they will discuss their chance meeting, creative collaboration, and musical journey. Moderating tonight's conversation is Lindsay Underwood, a reporter for the Style section of the New York Times. Just quickly, before we welcome our esteemed guests to the stage, we have a quick message from our lead sponsor, Citi. All right, what you've all been waiting for. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Lindsay Underwood, Kevin, Joe, and Nick Jonas, and Ryan Tedder.
Hello. Hello. How's it going?
Yeah, somehow I don't think all of that applause was for me.
Oh, it definitely was. Definitely was.
Yeah, thank you. So it's been 10 years since the last Jonas Brothers album. Why did you all feel like now was the right time? Jump right in.
How much time do we have? Well, it kind of started last year just to shoot a documentary and tell the story of the Jonas Brothers and what it was for 10, 15 years of our life. And we wanted to share it with our fans, we wanted to share it with the world. We sat down, we thought about what it'd be like to play a show again together, and we looked at each other and we're like, I don't know if we're really ready just yet, but we gotta shoot this, because the conversations went from laughter to anger and tears, and we said, let's get on camera and just see what comes from this. And through that process, there was a lot of healing that took place for us as a band, and more importantly, as brothers. And then we started the process of writing and recording. And so releasing an album 10 years later, it kind of just happened organically.
So were you fearful that fans wouldn't be there? Or, I mean, clearly they are, but when you...
I asked them straight up. I just said, do you think anyone's going to care?
Yeah.
And it came from a truly humble place of, will they? You know, like, you just don't know. Obviously, Joe was having so much success with DNCE, Nick and his solo projects. So being outside of it a little bit, allowed me to kind of look at it and say, are you sure you want to interrupt what you have going on for something like this?
Yeah. So Ryan, you co-wrote and co-produced Sucker and Cool, and were the executive producer of the new album. How did you all meet and decide to work on this together?
Well, how we met was actually amazing. We shared a green room. I'll make this quick. We shared a green room at one of the like jingle ball type things. I still can't remember what the event was.
It's American Idol finale.
American Idol finale. Nick's
The
like,
American Idol Jingle Ball.
so the American Idol, jingle ball. That one. So we met at one of those things, and it was really odd because when you play these events, no matter how many artists are there, even the Grammys, you always get your own green room, no matter how many artists are there. And this is the only time this has ever happened to my band. But we were walking through the belly of this arena, and it says Jonas Brothers plus OneRepublic. And we walk in, and it was like a family affair. And then we sat there and talked, and I knew that they were really big, but in all like seriousness, at that time I was so laser focused. This is the very beginning of OneRepublic, so I was so focused on my own band kind of succeeding that I wasn't paying attention to too many other artists. And then I was casually talking to Joe, and I was like, so where are you guys going after the Jingle Ball Idol finale? Idol. And then he was like, oh, I think we're going to Mexico City. I was like, oh, cool. What are you playing down there? He's like, I think we're doing like 3 arenas in a row, like a residency of arenas. And I turned to my manager and I was like, I had no idea they're so freaking big. They're like outrageous. And that's when it dawned on me. And that's when we met. And as far as how we ended up here, Nick and I wrote briefly during his solo stuff probably 3 years ago. Joe and I wrote briefly, but really we just talked for 2 days.
Yes.
Attempting to write for DNC. We still had, it's a great chorus, by the way, that we have on that song.
Yeah.
And then we all ended up writing at a Malibu writing camp with Diplo. It was the most random thing of all time. That's the truth. Yeah, and we did 3 songs in a day, and it led to us doing a session the next week. And in that week, we did Sucker, Used to Be, Roller Coaster. The rest is history. That was it.
In one weekend.
Yeah. I think she follows your Pinterest.
I mean, I guess I'm curious about the songwriting process and how you know when you've come on a good idea as someone who works with words quite a bit. It's like, how do you know when you have a good idea, when you should scrap it, or when you should just keep pushing through?
I think that I never know if it's a good idea or not. And there have been times I thought it was, and it turned out no one really responded to it. You know, so I think that you have to follow your own gut to a certain degree, but then also, you know, the brilliance of this partnership with Ryan for all of us has been that we've got a really great sounding board. You know, someone's going to be honest with us about, you know, if the line works or if it doesn't, the overall direction. And I think we all trust each other enough to just be honest. And having great collaborators and people you trust in that inner circle to tell you if you're getting in your own way or not is really important. And with this specific project, what we found to be interesting is that we didn't do a whole lot of second guessing ourselves, which I think was really important when we went about not only writing the music, but even the visuals that went along with it. It all happened very fast in a sense, but it's because we felt like we were at a place where we knew who we were, felt incredibly authentic to this moment of our lives. And I think a real sense of kind of understanding yourself and what you want to say as an artist makes the journey to get there a little easier. And so it's probably less about if a line is good or a song is just good, and more about if you feel like you're doing the best you can, and if you're collaborating with people that elevate you.
Yeah, I wonder how you feel going off of that, like how your music has changed in the last 10 years. I sense a lot of maturation, both in Joe and Nick, your solo projects that came out during the hiatus and then also now in the new record.
Yeah, I think that, you know, the solo journey that I went on was really important for me, just to settle into two things. The first was my identity as a solo person, separate to my artistry and all that, but just who I wanted to be, and the music kind of led me there. And some of those visuals even were a part of that story, even just getting the confidence to feel like I could take those steps out and step away from a guitar for moments and just be my own identity outside of this group. And then within that, you know, music, the landscape of the music industry has changed so much, as we all know, over the last 10 years, but then also, you know, specifically the things that I think we're all drawn to. And what was great about that chapter is that Joe was able to go on the journey he went on with DNCE, which was incredibly different to the Jonas Brothers sound, and I got to do my thing. But when we came back together, we sat with Ryan in the first conversation, we said it's got to be a combo of those and then something new. And then he played us Sucker. Sucker was done, and we fell in love with it with Ryan's voice on it. And you know, it was a matter of basically just putting our own voices on it to hear that, like, it really was that combination of DNCE, my solo stuff, and hats off to him for writing such a great song for us.
So switching gears a little bit, along with the new album, last week was also the premiere of Chasing Happiness, the documentary about you on Amazon Prime. It follows your story from the early days of trying to get your career off the ground, into the Disney years, reaching superstardom, and then the hiatus. I think we have a clip of when you went back to your hometown in New Jersey. Can we play that?
I've been back to White Boston, I think, about 10 years. About the same for me, maybe more. More, yeah. 12 years? New Jersey. It gets a bad rap, but it really is beautiful. This is like kind of where it all started for us out here. Like anybody's story, the good, the bad, the ugly. So I think there's like a mix of emotions that we'll all be feeling today. To do that. Oh shit. Holy shit! There it is. Wow. Let's go check it out. Don't follow, come on. Whatever. I want to see it too. I'm not just here to like be filmed. Oh my God. So crazy. Weird, man. So trippy.
Is that a complete standstill?
Frozen in time. We haven't been back in so long. We're up Pleasing Mind in that living room right there, where that window is, with the red curtain. And it's even trippier because there's like nothing's changed about the house at all.
Yeah.
It feels like we would just walk back in there and be 7 years old.
There's a lot of firsts for us here.
First song, first hospital visit.
Mom and Dad got pregnant with Frankie there.
Oh, in that church. This is like the first place I sang. It was a church, yeah.
I played on the worship team here every Sunday.
We were here every single day.
So I guess like a broad question is, what were you trying to achieve with doing this documentary?
To get Nick to cry, I think.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Didn't happen.
No, it didn't. Like, maybe a little bit. I saw like a tear.
We'll get to the crying.
Yeah, oh, great.
I cried in the Dr. Phil interview a little bit.
You did, yeah.
There's a moment.
He got you. But the doc was really special for us to be able to create and be a part of with John Taylor, the director, and Philly Mack, our manager, and to be able to tell our story as much as we could fit in 90 minutes, because there's a lot more of that's not there, which I feel like we're holding on to, or we feel like maybe at another time we'll tell more. But we said, look, this is how we were raised, where we grew up, our parents' story as well. It's about family, and I think we didn't even focus too much on us as a band, more so just our relationship as brothers and what that's like. And our goal making this would be to have somebody call up their brother they haven't spoken to in a while, or their sibling, and be able to have those tough conversations and maybe put it out there. For us, it was have some tequila and get real, which helped. But if that's not for other family, that's fine. But I think like for us, that it took us a few sips till we started really opening up, and we found a lot of, like I said earlier, a lot of healing through doing this documentary.
I imagine, though, and looking at this clip, going back to a place where you grew up, and especially that church, that there were a lot of emotions that came up. I would love if we could talk a bit about, revisiting a lot of those home movies and that time in your life, and specifically also places where you didn't feel welcome anymore, and what that brought up in the three of you.
Well, it's kind of bizarre watching it back. The first time we watched it, we were thinking, how do we have all this footage? Both, from the time we were really young, and then also as we started to get older in the beginning of the band. And we're so grateful we do, because, we were able to put it in this film. So, film your kids from the time they're born. You never know. And then as far as going back to old places, I think that New Jersey specifically, it's I kind of said it in the clip there, but it does get a bad rap to a certain degree. And what I mean by that is that people don't understand how enriched with culture and art, and a lot of incredible musicians have come out of there. They tend to associate it with things that maybe aren't the most desirable over the last couple of years. And so
Like what, Nick?
I'd rather not say. But I think that for us, it really was a big part of our identity that we didn't know about till we went back and actually retraced our steps and went up to the church, and actually opening up that conversation, which we'd all been kind of closed about in our own way, and had to go on our own journey with faith, which then made the conversation about that actual building really complicated. For those of you that didn't see it or that don't know, it was just a really challenging chapter of our life where we were tested as a family. That's the way I put it, by some people that pushed our father out of his job and made our life really complicated. And so to go back and revisit that was pretty tough, but I think it was necessary, and one of the things that was great when we all first started working together too is that there is sort of a little bit of a Christian music background to a certain degree with all of us, and we kind of related on that, and for the first time being able to sort of talk about that chapter of all of our lives, I think with a smile was nice, and write songs like, Trust, which are, again, you can make it about whatever you want, but I think that it's within all the themes that we've done, is kind of exploring the many paths you take in life, and the ones that perhaps are the good ones and the bad ones. And thankfully, we steered clear of a pretty bad path after that chapter in the church as a family.
Yeah, I guess throughout the film, you talk about, especially with the purity ring narrative that like weaved its way through your early career, and that it wasn't necessarily reflective of where you were at the time, or at different times in your life as you got older. I would be remiss to ask, what is your relationship with your faith now, and how do you think that is reflected in the work that you do? Good question for you as well, Ryan.
Well, would you like to talk about your purity ring?
I just, it was. I found it on Etsy. It was a dope ring. It got the label purity. I'll quickly touch on that topic, then I know we all have something to say about that. We were raised in a very similar fashion, opposite parts of the country. I'm raised in Oklahoma. One person.
Yeah.
And she went.
They're like, I know of it.
Literally just boop. Yeah, congratulations, we made it. High five. Yeah, but I moved to like Chelsea the second I graduated. I went to a Christian college, and I was raised in a Pentecostal household, which is in the version, Assembly of God Pentecostal. Our version of Christianity is as extreme as you could possibly go. As extreme as you could possibly go. Take things very spiritually. it goes deep. I have family members literally trained in exorcism. We don't call it that in the Pentecostal church. We call it deliverance, but it's exorcism. I don't think we even talked about that before. Maybe we did.
We
I want to know more.
He's like, no, man, you're a whole nother Christian
Damn.
than I am.
I'm like chugging water.
She's like sweating. I can sense you have something to talk about.
Talk with, right?
But what I'll say on that topic is I did grow up listening to only Christian music, gospel music. I grew up in the church, singing in church, which is why a lot of the stuff that I do has that gospel undertone. And the Beach Boys were the only things that I was allowed to listen to for years that wasn't gospel. So we definitely. And what's weird is it takes 5 seconds being in a room with someone to know they're from the same. I knew the second I met you guys. I didn't know anything about you. I walked in the room, and there's a vibe. You just know. You're like, you grew up in the same church I did. It's so weird, but I knew, and I think.
But also at that time, back in 2009, we would have been like, "Hello, Mr. Tedder. It's so good to meet you.
I'm pretty sure.
Thank you for sharing the dressing room."
Hi.
We look
Yeah.
adults in the eyes and say thank you after everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Under his eye. So, but I picked up on that from them in 5 seconds at the American Idol Jingle Ball when we met, and I think that you can't escape that. When you grow up with that, what's amazing about music in the church, I still believe in God. I still my faith in terms of who I think is going to heaven or hell, I'm not going to touch that. Nobody knows, and to me there's a number of elements that I have just made my peace with. It's not my choice. There's so many topics that at this point I can't believe what were indoctrinated into me. There's certain aspects of the Christian faith I absolutely adore, and some that now that I've traveled the world, I have the hardest time casting judgment on somebody raised in a different family, different community, different city than me. Who am I to judge anybody? Thank you. All that to say, I still have the same faith, but it has definitely evolved, and I for me personally accept every race, creed, color, sex. There's the whole. I went to I'm not going to call out places, but I was surrounded by a lot of racism growing up. One of the places that I lived was just abject racism and abject bigotry, and so for me. A big part of music, working with these guys, connecting, it was me escaping from where I was. I had to get out of the place I was into a place that felt creative and accepting. And I think that one of the reasons we connected is there was this unspoken thing that came from growing up in such a similar. Their dad was a pastor, right? Yeah. My grandparents, my aunts and uncles are still missionaries to this day and are still very active in the church. And thankfully, I can say that even in the Midwest, in Oklahoma, the church is evolving, which I think is a good thing.
Are we gonna let him just...
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
And he crushed it. I mean, not the same story, but I had the same kind of look at things now. I imagine that there's life after this. I get on a plane and it starts a little bit of turbulence, and I'm praying to something. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm praying. But we all, the three of us, we all grew up differently, and on our own, we kind of found our own paths. And yeah, I was talking about the purity ring thing. We spoke about it at the doc, but now we get to laugh at it. When you make those decisions when you're 11, 12 years old, you don't know what you're signing up for. But now, being adults and being able to find people that we love, you maybe are happy that you waited for a little while. And honestly, I think it's hilarious, and I love watching South Park.
I mean,
Those who don't know, Mickey beat me up in South Park. Just making sure.
I guess another part of a big theme in your earlier career, or a big part of that, was Disney, right? And so as you got older, it seemed like obviously it was something that you wanted to shake. How did you, other than deciding to move on from the show and disassociate a bit from the network, I guess, how do you show people that I'm a grown-up now?
How do we show them now?
Yeah.
We usually just walk in the room and see. But I think that what became tough. This is a strange thing to say in a way, but what became tough is that we were in a really odd spot back then, where, in one part of our life and career, we were pretending to be teenagers and be unaccompanied in LA, living the dream, and the show didn't really make sense to me. I didn't know what it was about, our TV show. But it was something to do with us being a band and being in LA. But there was that aspect of it which felt kind of cheesy.
And we also were a band called Jonas, but we weren't brothers.
We weren't brothers, apparently. And then on the flip side to that, we were Grammy nominated. I think that was hard for us to wrap our heads around. In some circles, being accepted as real artists and musicians and storytellers, and in the other, being known for something that didn't really feel authentic to us, but was a major platform. We really never subscribed to the narrative that is Disney is bad or was bad for us. In our minds, Disney was the best years of training how to be a professional, and it was an enormous platform that really set us up in a big way, and we're thankful for that. And the flip side of that, too, is that it was also limiting at a certain point when we wanted to grow and evolve as artists and started to insulate because we felt like people that we wanted to work with, like the Ryan Tedders of the world, maybe they wouldn't want to work with us because they didn't take us seriously. But in the same breath, at times we would get recognition in a critical way. So we were always kind of battling that and trying to figure out where we landed. And I think it wasn't until we actually just grew and aged up and became men and actually went on a journey. And a big thing with that, too, is we stopped kind of operating like robots in interviews. We were so programmed by pressures we felt to uphold a certain image because Disney has to, right? And that is important for them. And I don't think anyone should shame them for that. That's just a part of being a family company. But when you get older and you want to talk about sex, you want to talk about drinking and experiences and all of that, you need to be able to do that, and feel the freedom to do that. Joe did it with Fast Life. I did it with my first solo album, Fast Life. And, we couldn't have done that with Disney. So I think just the natural growth and journey we went on was important, but we now look at that chapter, I think, and smile, knowing that it was really formative years for us. It was kind of our high school years in front of the world, which was weird. But in addition to that, we got some great training in and had a huge platform. So I'm grateful for it, although I feel like at moments it was really tough.
Sure. So we were supposed to play another clip of when, I think it was when Joe and Kevin, you were talking about when Nick came to you and said that, we have gone this far and we want to break up, but we don't have a ton of time, so I'm not going to play that clip. Send that to the back.
Y'all know how it went.
Yeah.
You know the story.
Yeah, you know the story. So I guess I just want to get to how it affected your relationship as brothers going through that and how you were able to repair.
I think it was different for each of us. In the moments after Nick had that really tough conversation with us, I think I handled it a little bit differently than Joe. I actually kind of looked at it from the perspective like, okay, I guess this is what it is now. Because my mind was already kind of, I'm going to have to take a break in 5 months anyway for a time, because we were about to have our first child. So I kind of like shifted focus, makes sense? I did that. And so I actually kind of shifted focus. I don't think it dawned on me how real it was until much later. Because I think in that moment, in that room, it didn't really feel real. But in the doc, we touch on it as well. It was the moment for me, which was later, which was a couple months later when those radio shows happened. That's when, for me, it was like, okay, this is different. And so that's when everything became much more complex in my head, and I disconnected completely from the family for a time, and just all of those things. But I never felt like I gave up on our friendship, our brotherhood, or of any of those moments, but I needed to take a step away from it. And it took a lot of time. It took a lot of healing for me to do personally. And I will say it was hard. There was times where it was tough to watch them succeed from home. You know, but I started to realize that I was succeeding so much and growing so much as a person. To finish the statement, because without living that life, those stories, what I needed to do, I couldn't come back now with them and with Ryan and be able to impart my story in that as well. And to do this full-heartedly and be all in again. But, yeah.
I'll be short. That was amazing.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You have to say that. It's important. It was obviously very difficult personally for me. You know, my life was the Jonas Brothers. So to find life without the Jonas, and for some of you out there as well. But it was important to to figure out what life was without the guys. If you can imagine being with your friends all the time, imagine being with your brothers all the time, every day. All our friends were the same friends. We're sharing the stage. We're sharing every car, every hotel. After a while, that gets to you. So naturally, that time to figure out what life was beyond it, whether if it was just me on my own, personally, musically, that time was so important. And to mend the relationship, that actually happened when we were apart from being a band. And just spending time like a normal family would, and actually growing a friendship outside of this band that we started to look at as a job or a chore at times, and it started to become, you know what? Let's just hang out. Let's go to a baseball game together. Let's just spend time walking around New York, and I want to share in the things that you guys love. I want to spend time with your kids and be able to like, I guess, get to know each other in a different perspective, and that's when our relationship grew, and we looked at each other 6-7 years later, we're like, okay, this is a healthy place to be and to start it all over again.
Can I say one more thing real quick? I will say, though, I applaud Nick as well, though, for having the balls to do it. like, yeah, you just put the words, yeah, there you go. But, like, to actually have that conversation when it really did need to happen, and having the guts to rip off that Band-Aid. You know, it takes years and time and effort to get there, but I think we're better for it. And so, yeah, thanks, bro.
But don't ever do that again.
During a brief scene in the documentary, I think it was you, Joe, and it was during the hiatus when, Kevin, you did the show Married to Jonas, and you said something, I think, yeah. Joe, that it was a sort of a tough time for the rest of you in that you weren't sure that you wanted to like show facets of your life in that way on television. It was interesting to me, or perhaps ironic, that this was happening or in a documentary. So I guess the question is about privacy and how you choose to share parts of your personal lives and your relationships, and when that feels appropriate and when it doesn't.
I think there's things that we still keep private. There's things that in my life that I keep private. My partner, and we don't want to share everything, but naturally, like, there are parts of our lives we love sharing with the world, and of course on Instagram you see your friends, you follow a lot of people as well, so for us those are those outlets. But in the doc, that was really the first time we ever spoke about being uncomfortable with all those things. Whether if it was, like Nick said, feeling like we were outgrowing Disney, or the reality show Kevin did. As much as I enjoyed watching it, I think there was times it felt really uncomfortable on camera, like having a family dinner, having these discussions, and I'm like, yo, man, like, we didn't talk about this. Like, why are these cameras in this room right now? And we never did that. We always had those conversations behind closed doors. And to finally be able to kind of air it out, we just said everything in the doc as much as we could, because we felt like we finally were ready to explain ourselves. Even though nobody really asked for it, we felt like we needed to get it off our chests, and it feels really good to.
That's a good point, though.
Yeah.
No one did.
No one did ask them, why did you not like the why'd you not like Kevin's show? I don't know.
There was also an aspect of, a safety net, given that we co-produced the film as well. So we were able to say kind of what we wanted freely, knowing we could be like, can you?
And that's all the time we have for you. Good night. Thank you.
Say what we wanted freely, knowing we could edit it.
Will you fix that, please?
Oh, that's
I love that you awed him. Boom.
that a boy.
Hired.
That's all.
Great. But Nick, I think it was in Billboard. I read that you said that the reunion between the three of you would have imploded, in your words, as they said, without the documentary. What did you mean by that?
I think I mean that actually, this is going to sound funny, but putting a budget together to make the film and taking the steps to put ourselves out there as far as we did, having a camera crew around us that were, flying all around the world to film this stuff, forced us to actually sit down and have some of these conversations, because I think we would have avoided it otherwise. If it was just at Thanksgiving dinner, for instance, and we were like, can we take 4 hours to go play this drinking game where we'll be really honest about the way we feel? All the feelings we've harbored for years, I don't think it would have worked out. Probably would have ruined Thanksgiving, too. So it was a really good thing. And, just even talking. I mean, I think that we all did things, to each other unintentionally or intentionally over the years that became sort of deep-seated feelings and emotions that would have come up at the wrong time. And even now in this new chapter, I think we're constantly learning about each other and how, we need to operate now for it to be healthy. And those little things that I think it's all about communication. Someone says something, you hear another, and specifically with us, because we have such different personalities, I think it always happens, and insecurities rise to the top, and that's the sort of formula for things to really fall apart. So we're doing our best just to be honest with each other and keep that dialogue open, even though there's no longer cameras filming things that nobody asked for.
Have your roles in the band evolved in this new phase?
Yeah, we actually have a fourth member.
It's true.
I think they have, for sure. I think the biggest evolution is just that we kind of have an operating system that seems to work now, which is that the band is not the most important thing in our lives. We love what we do. We're grateful to have amazing fans, but at the end of the day, too, to be inspired, to continue to write music that we like performing and hopefully you like as well, we have to go live life and prioritize our own families and our family together, and that perspective is so key. It's actually, we talked about that a lot in the studio with Ryan, because he's done it so effortlessly with his band and his family for so long, that it's really been so nice to actually just be in the studio and talk for hours about how do you do this? We're no longer teenagers.
Or he'll just say, like, all right, I'm going home cooking dinner for the kids. And, like, that's what it's about. So it's really refreshing to work with somebody like Ryan.
I also wanted to say, they said something about earlier about how, Disney prepared them in a way for being professional and different things, and approaching this and as a career, and not just like, I won the talent lottery and now I'm a recording artist, which is, it happens with artists. I kind of joke that and I'm not throwing a bunch of artists under the bus, but this does happen. A lot of artists, when you get a record contract, if you're super young, it's like you get a license to not have to make adult decisions anymore. You have arrested development the moment you sign that deal because it's like, here's your manager, here's your business manager, here's your attorney, here's your label, and you no longer have to think, be talented, be sexy, go. And while they have those three things in the bag, in spades, the unique thing about them, and look, I've experienced it with maybe 2 other artists in my career personally, but just to kind of applaud them for a minute, they've been the easiest and I would dare say my favorite people to work with because other than Paul McCartney. That's fair. Because it's like if there could be a session at 2 p.m., they're there between 1:55 and 2:05. And then we show up, we have a real conversation about what do we want to write about. Nick usually has 5 ideas at the same time, which is insane. And then we tear through like maybe 2 songs in an afternoon. And what I love about working with them is like, I'm not the one stressing, going, guys, I got to be out by 7:30, or like, I'm gonna be in trouble. They're like, hey, so we actually are gonna have dinner with our wives, and we need to be out by 6:30. And we finished writing this incredible song, and we go live our lives, and it's just so functional, it freaks me out. It's too functional, it's amazing. Anyway, thank you. I'm a sucker for you and them. Thank you. Bless you.
Perfect segue. I mean, so the 3 of you are all married now. How has that affected your relationship as brothers and also your relationship as a band?
It's had a big effect. I mean, Kevin's had the most experience with it. He's been married for nearly 10 years, which is amazing. And, I can only speak to my own experience, which is just that it's made kind of every aspect of my life better. If it's the right person, I highly suggest it. It's just great. And, my life is a better place across the board. And I like to believe that, that I can return that favor to her in a small way that she gives me every day. So that's great. And then in addition to that, from a creative standpoint, it's also brilliant. I spent a long time manufacturing love songs to fit the idea I had in my head of it, not having a full understanding until now. And I think hopefully there's clarity in the music itself where you kind of can sense that it comes from a real earnest place now. And then, the only challenge would be just that, I used to write like songs about sad things that I have to make up and manufacture. Kidding. I can still find inspiration. But she's the best, and I'm grateful, and I'm glad that, she's fit so perfectly in our family.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting as a band, because for the first time since I guess I got married, but we're all on the same plane, like dealing with some of the same issues, going through some of the same things, have that in common. And so it's ironic that it's happened, the Jonas Brothers happened unintentionally as well, because we were filming the documentary before you and Priyanka ever started dating.
I was writing another solo album, and then this happened.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's the best case scenario, but there was songs in the works, and I think Joe had just released the additional DNC EP, and it all connected, the stars for us to come back together. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that you...
Go ahead.
Both you, Ryan, and Kevin, you have children, and how does that, I think, affect how you think about songwriting and the things that you are comfortable talking about lyrically, and then also logistically, being on the road and, balancing?
We spend a lot of time, like, kind of one-on-one talking about that in, downtime or whatever when we're in the studio. But Ryan, you've been doing it for a little longer than I have, so you can kind of speak to it.
Yeah, you know, when we started touring in 2008, I think it was 07, 08, around, funny enough, around the same time you guys did. I didn't have any kids, and the first, I want to say 3 or 4 years, I didn't have any kids. The second you have them, it does change everything dynamically, how your family travels. So I would call other bands that I perceived to be doing it well. Like they seem to have functional marriages, functional lives. And one of the bands I called, I just asked a couple of guys who I was friends with, I said, what's your guys' rule? And they said, well, the rule is if we're in the US, we don't go more than 2 weeks without seeing our family. So we either fly home for a couple days or they fly out. And if it's overseas, we'll do 3 weeks. You have to think about these things, because otherwise you blink and you're gone for 9 months. OneRepublic, when we toured, Lord have mercy, we have a fan, and there she is. Yep. But when we were getting that thing going, we on our third album, Native, we toured for 2.5 years straight, which led to us getting to our fourth album and me actually reaching total burnout and pulling the plug on a whole album right after we released it, which I learned you don't know where the wall is until you hit it in life, right? So I had to reach out to other artists who I thought were doing perceptively great at being married and having kids. Ironically, the first band that I called to ask advice from is now pretty much all divorced, I think. But I will say there were other things at play. They need to, like to Nick's point, marry the right one at the right time. It works. Not to discourage anybody from marrying the right one. So it takes a lot of thought. It takes effort. It takes expense. You have to build it into the tours. You have to build in time off when you're overseas crushing it. Because the thing is, when you are touring with 50 people and doing arenas, every day that you're off, just from a business perspective, costs you a fortune. All those people are in hotels and all these trucks and things and whatever. So you have all this pressure from your business people all the time saying, yeah, cool, we can do 5 days off in Paris. That's going to cost you. And then you're like, don't tell me. It's my family, dude. I don't want to hear about it. We're taking time off. My family's coming out. Chill.
And I'm still figuring it out, right? Like that's part of it too, the ebb and flow, what you're comfortable with, when you're not. And it's exciting. My daughters came to their first Jonas Brothers concert, like last week. And it's an amazing environment because having their uncles there, wanting to spend time and play and hang out and have these girls experience this life, that is their life now. Never thought it was gonna happen again. Very grateful it is. But just also blessed that we have the people around us willing to make it as comfortable and exciting. And honestly, the summer tour into forever tour, it seems like. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, see you later. I want it to be enjoyable. I want to do fun things for them, in different places. I'm looking forward to it kind of like it's summer camp and I'm the counselor,
And I will say, I know Nick.
Camp Rock.
That sounds vaguely familiar, actually.
Yeah. That's really weird.
That was unintentional.
That's art, life imitating art.
Yeah,
imitating.
I guess so.
I will say that to Nick and Joe don't have kids yet, and obviously at some point, God willing, they will. It is there is nothing cooler than your kid, especially where I come from, where all I wanted to do was see the world, and I couldn't. When your kid is like, Dad, that one time when we were in Madrid or when we were in the Louvre,
right? Yeah.
And it's like a 5-year-old, and he's like asking questions about Paris and Madrid, and it's the coolest experience ever. So anyway, you all should start a band, get successful, and then we'll talk.
So we had to skip over a lot of things because I'm making time for the questions that you all submitted. But I want to make sure that I mention that next week, the three of you are going to be on Songland, a show that Ryan is a mentor on.
Thank you, guys.
It's an incredible show.
Can you tell us more about it? What has it been like working on it? Why did you think it was important to highlight songwriting in this sort of venue, etc.?
It's your show, man.
Yeah, I think you should. I'd say one thing that you should do, which is just that I love that they created a show that gives songwriters the spotlight. So often they're overlooked and they're the heroes. Without great songs, you wouldn't have some of the great artists that you love. And so Ryan building this show at NBC and doing something like this is just amazing as a fan. But then to be a part of it was so emotional, actually. When you watch it, you'll see specifically what we're talking about. But it's incredible what can happen to one person's life based off a platform like this. And Ryan's amazing. He's the best. He's the best coach.
Thank you. I'm going to keep this short because I know there are more questions. But what I'll say about the show, and they crushed it on there. Every week it's a different artist. It took 4 years of development to get the show happening. What it functionally is, and I passed on a lot of different TV shows over the last 4 or 5 years for a number of reasons. I wanted to do something that actually I felt like people that came on, their lives and careers could change. Because a lot of the shows, they're entertaining, but the show ends and nobody wins except the judges. And I wanted to be a part of something where a show that the 15-year-old me or the 18-year-old me from Oklahoma would watch and go, oh my God, I'm submitting right now. I will drive to LA, I will hitchhike, I will Uber, whatever. I got to be on the show. And what it is, for the last 15 years, everybody's been obsessed with these cooking shows, and I watch all of them. I watch the bad ones. Chopped, I watch the bad ones. I've seen the movie Chef 20 times. I love all the good ones, all the bad ones. There are hundreds of thousands of hours of people watching people cook and eat food that you can't taste or smell. But we love it, right? The two most consumed things on earth are food and music. And this is the first show that lets you into the kitchen, and except at the end of the show, you get to taste and eat and smell the music. And so that's a weird way to put it, but you understand what I'm saying. We're letting you into songwriting sessions. Yeah, you can smell it. You can smell it right now. So yeah, we let you into the kitchen, and every episode's a different artist. This week was Kelsey Ballerini, and the song that she helped finish and record on Songland has been sitting at #2 on iTunes for the last 3 days. And the songwriter is an unknown writer from Philadelphia. From Philly. And yeah, didn't you say you were from Oklahoma earlier? Was that? Okay. Whoever has the reserved seat, it's still reserved. It's right behind you. Anyway, that's the nutshell on the show. These guys came on and crushed it. They're on next week. And I'm not going to give it away, but we finished the song like yesterday. It's incredible.
Okay, so I'm going to ask that we do this as a bit of a lightning round. These are the questions that the audience submitted before the show. So first, Marin asks, and this is for you, Ryan, is there a song that you wrote with or for someone else that you wish you kept for yourself or your band?
Sucker. I really wish... I'm just, I know. A hit is not a hit. People say, oh, a hit is a hit. A hit is a great song. It has to be connected and melded and mixed. What they brought to Sucker, what they added to it, is something that I never could have done, and no other act on earth would have done it better than them, and it changed the temperature on the record. You have to acknowledge the right artist and the right song. To that end, there aren't any songs that I necessarily wish I could take back. The one song I'm jealous of that I did for anybody else that I could have changed the lyrics maybe and done, I'm just jealous of it, is Rumor Has It, Adele. When I wrote it, the moment she recorded it, I was like, oh shit, that's so good. I wish I could sing it. So now when we tour, we cover it. So same diff. I got you, girl. Hit me on MySpace after, all right?
Allie asked, I guess I'll pick two randomly, Joe and Nick. What are each of your most regrettable fashion moments?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Fashion moments
Regrettable.
that you regret.
Regrettable?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There's a couple interesting looks There's a band, Tokyo Hotel, that I love. And I really loved, like, in 2009, and I thought the lead singer was such a badass, and he had his hair all spiky like an anime character, and I tried that out for a bit. So mine wasn't it wasn't clothing, but it was some hair choices. And I know you would say your sideburns. Yeah. And yeah.
And like vests and pocket watches and just weird stuff.
You did it all the accessories. We did a photo shoot with our mother, actually, for Good Housekeeping.
It's meme worthy.
It's
meme worthy.
For sure, but it's basically us in pastel sweaters and
like an Easter shoot.
It's very polite, and we're like weirdly like holding her up.
But you know what? Our mom was like really excited that day, so that like we still look back and we're like, oh, that's really cute. Because our mom was so happy that day. She's like, I'm on the cover of Good Housekeeping.
She looks amazing, as she always does. She's a beautiful woman, but we look really ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
That was painful.
Maura asked, what was the hardest thing about growing up in the public eye?
Switching gears.
Good housekeeping.
I think the hardest thing was probably just living out your adolescence in real time in front of the world. It's kind of as simple as that. You know, we probably all had periods of our life where we were going through something, and for a lot of people, they get to experience the rollout of that in private, or in private to a certain degree. You know, now with social media, we're all so connected, and that inner circle gets bigger and bigger every day. By way of Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and MySpace, Ryan. And
it's still cool.
It's still cool.
Damn it.
And so I think it was just a matter of, everything from going through adventures in love, acne, and everything in between in front of people. That was kind of tough.
Yeah.
Emily asked, or says, Strangers is her favorite track on the album. Could you dig into the writing process on that track a bit?
Sure. Strangers was one that we wanted to kind of tip the hat to old Jonas Brothers music. And the writing, we kind of let the music do its thing, and we thought, at least for us, we felt like, it's kind of a song for fans. That when we got back to doing this, we were no strangers to you. We were able to kind of get back on that old horse and ride now. So like be able to get back together, release music, and they're still around. We're not strangers, and a lot of our influences growing up were a lot of punk pop bands, and so we wanted to be able to kind of just say, yeah, this is also what we love, by showing a lot of different kind of genres, I guess, of influence on the album.
Daniela asked, do you have any pre-show rituals that you will continue from when you used to tour?
Recently, we've been blasting Bollywood hits before every show. It gets me
and
hyped.
Lil Nas X as well.
And Lil Nas X.
And I picked up a few things from DNC that I showed these guys. So a few drinks, a few adult beverages, a lot of screaming, slapping.
It works.
Yeah, it's just
I don't partake in the slapping part.
I asked you to slap.
I slap you,
slap
but
me.
I don't get slapped.
No, you don't get slapped.
Makes me very uncomfortable.
I go for a long run. When we tour, I try to run like 3 to 5 miles before a show and get back like 30 minutes before the show. And how I started doing that was
I saw Tim McGraw do that.
Tim McGraw. That's how I did it. That's how I
No
learned.
way.
Yeah, that's how.
So
Oh my God.
we've never talked about this. But
Did you guys
we were
just
in
become best friends?
We were in Texas, and
just became
I
best
went
friends.
to see his show, and he shows up just like running after 5 miles, and he's just shirtless, looking
Ripped.
jacked as hell. And I'm just like, what the hell's happening? Yeah.
So on that note, I was at the one time this is going to sound such a name drop thing, but it happened. I was at his house, in Faith's house in Nashville, talking to her about new music they wanted to do years ago. And he walks in, like just drenched in sweat. Was like, hey man, how you doing? And I was like, she shook my hand and crushed it. And then I turned to Faith and I was like, your husband is ripped. And isn't he like 20 years older than me? And she's like, oh, he runs 5 miles before every show. That's what he does. And that's all it took. And I go, starting tomorrow, I'm on the Tim McGraw pre-show diet.
The fact that I knew that.
That is crazy, man. We are best friends. And then the last thing I'll say is musically, the last tour we did, I try to pick 1 or 2 songs before every set that is somebody else, obviously, that gets me going. And lately it's been, I'll either jam Rosalia, like Malamente, or the first 1975 EP, The City, that song. That's the sickest song they've ever done. Anyway.
That leads quite well into a question from Grace, and she asked, basically, what kind of music are you listening to right now, and what inspired you in this record?
A lot of different influences for each of us on the record. I feel like with this one, just sort of let the journey creatively take us there, because there are certain influences that have always been there, like Stevie Wonder and Elvis Costello and Prince and those. And then recently, 1975 was a huge influence. Post Malone was also kind of an influence in there. And then, as far as what I'm listening to right now, Troye Sivan's amazing. Always love his stuff. I have been listening to Boy With Love a lot, I'm not gonna lie. I love that song. I love I went to their show in LA, and it was amazing. BTS, that is. It was incredible. And then, I'm trying to think, what else have we been... Joe's sort of our musical guide. He always has a new playlist and sends us the coolest stuff.
Oh, yeah.
He has the best playlist of all time before that show in LA.
Oh.
Maybe don't give it away.
Share it with it. I don't care. I'll share it with you guys. Lizzo is another artist I love. There's a song called Phone that she has about losing your phone in a nightclub. I've always loved that song, and I can relate.
Shay asked, how do you decide from song to song, and this could apply to OneRepublic too, I think, how to divide vocals and who's singing what parts?
It's actually kind of funny. Can I say it from the outside a little bit? It's so fun to watch. It happened yesterday. Yeah, it happened yesterday. And to see, I think it's just so dialed in at this point. It's just like melody, tone, conversation. It's like instantly just kind of, we know. It's one of those things.
I think as well, I think that's a part of our life where we've grown a lot as a band. But I think early on, we would sometimes fight for the lead vocal. And we'd be like, I need to take this one. This is about the person I wrote it about, or this or that. And we realize now it's like, we said it in the studio yesterday, whoever's going to sound best for the song. And there's no ego in that anymore, where we feel like we want the song to sound its best. So let's just, maybe we'll both or all three of us sing on it, and whoever ends up standing out the most and making the most sense for that part, it's all good. It's all love.
And then it's the producer's job to, at the end of the day, make the decision if we're not sure. For instance, Sucker, we came in, I was like, I think I'll probably do the pre, Joe do the verse and the chorus, and Joe and I ended up recording the whole thing each, and then Ryan, we left it to him to decide, and it was, I think, the right sort of path on that one. But
the dream situation.
Thanks, dude.
Oh, you're welcome. They know each other so well. Again, it's literally like a SEAL Team 6 of recording. By the way, New York Times is doing a fundraiser after this. You can donate $5 through WhatsApp. Anyway, they're like SEAL Team 6 of recording, so even down to the background vocals, it's so quick. And ultimately, with them, if I have the luxury of time with them specifically, I'll have Joe and Nick kind of record, like with Sucker, record the whole thing, and then I get to not even think about who's singing and just move stuff around until it's like, okay, that feels right.
Casey asked a question that goes right into that for you, Ryan. Do you prepare differently for writing sessions or recording sessions with different artists? How did you enter a session with these guys versus, say, Beyonce or Adele?
Every artist is different. Every artist is completely different. The first thing I try to do is think about, I am an artist, so the one advantage I have is I think like an artist, and so I will imagine what's going to, if I'm in their shoes and I'm living their lives. Sometimes I will get on their, straight up on, I didn't do it with them because I knew them, but I'll get on their Instagram, I'll get on their socials and see what they're going through in their life if I'm going to be writing for them the next day. And I'll just kind of slide into it in conversation naturally. I like to get artists talking. The first hour of a session is the most important thing because that's when the lyrics fall out. I mentioned Adele, Rumor Has It. When we did that song, we had just done Turning Tables like a couple weeks before, and I walk in and she says, "What do you want to?" She walks in, just storms through the door, and she's like, I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" She's like, "You know what? I've had a rubbish day. I don't want to talk about it." She's like, but honestly, she's like, "I'm in the mood to just do something that's crazy, that's tempo." And she said, and I said, "What's going on in your life?" She's like, "What is it? All these, my friends called me from London. There's all these rumors. Like Adele's doing this, Adele's doing that. Rumor has it she did this. Rumor has it she did that." I was like, "Stop. We have a song." Doesn't always work that way, but I don't like walking into sessions empty-handed. The crazy thing is, though, after writing with these guys, like, I remember the first session we had was with Diplo, which is so random. We keep bringing him up, but it was random. But it was like...
He's probably live streaming back there.
Is that you, Diplo? I knew it.
He's dabbing somewhere in the corner.
Shirtless, for sure.
But we had a session, and we were doing ideas, and the one rule I have about, and I'll get off this topic, the one rule I have is I'll walk in with at least one concept or one line just in case the session sucks, that I could at the end be like, I have this one idea and try to like rescue the session. And I learned that from like years in Nashville. Country songwriters always walk in with an idea.
Cool. Shannon asked, we already talked about music and getting inspiration from other musicians, but what else in your life, film, television, inspires you?
It's a great question. I love watching movies and writing songs from the perspective of the character. In addition to the music stuff, acting is a big part of my life, and even acting and then writing on my own screenplays and a play, I find that I can actually think like a character sometimes when I'm writing, which is really helpful. You have to see it from many perspectives, and I worked with a guy named David Massey, who's in the documentary as well, who signed me originally, who told me one time, and it really stuck with me, that as artists, we can't be selfish. We can't just write songs for us. And I think that is true. Sometimes you do. You have to write it for yourself, he said. But for someone like you who has the platform you have to reach as many people as you can, he said, you have to be thinking about everyone being able to connect to this in some way. So I think we were all conscious in this writing process specifically, it hasn't always been this way, of writing things that were relevant to us and important to us, but with a perspective that could make it really human and eye level so that it can relate to anyone in their walk of life and anything they're going through. So every song on the album, although it's personal, is kind of from a worldview perspective that I think is a bit more open.
Okay, and I think we have time for one more question. The lucky person is Emma, who asked, what was the songwriting process like for Used to Be? The song sounds like it has R&B influences. If so, were there any artists or albums that drove that sound?
This is one of my favorite stories from the whole album, apart from Cool, which was the last one we wrote for the album, which was meant to be, we were coming in to write a ballad, but with Used to Be, we were all talking about how much we love the era, and I saw your shirt down there, Retired Emo Kid. We were all talking about how much we love that era of like popular culture, which was the pop, punk, emo phase. And so we started writing a melody, spending all your time with your new friends. And
some screaming, I think, was involved too.
And it evolved to basically Used to Be now. But it fully started
Somehow.
as like an angsty pop, punk, emo song that found its way into an R&B, country, pop song. So.
Yeah, we connected on it was like the second session maybe we had, I think, and we connected on on the 90s thing, or not even 90s, it was this early 2000s that we were talking about. And I remember the original, I still have the demo of Used to Be, the original demo at first.
We need to hear that.
Yeah, I'll dig it up for you. Yeah, that'll happen never, but yeah. And I was doing, he and I were trading off on guitar, doing like the kind of driving, I remember the chords, it was very, almost like, not all-time low, but like simple plan kind of vibe. Yeah. It's like ding, 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 ding. And then I was like, wait a minute, this feels like, I feel like we're doing, it's so niche. What if we go further back into the 90s? And that's when I did the hack job of the guitar, which we kept, which is great. And it turned into this like just 808s and 90s, almost like Foo Fighters style guitar, I think is what we referenced.
And we always say, like, you know, these are happy mistakes when this happens, because, you know, in a songwriting process, there's two rules. Happy mistakes are welcome, and dare to suck. You have to throw every idea at the wall, hoping one thing sticks, or if it doesn't, it gets to the next best idea. And so it's okay to fail, dare to suck, and sometimes you might stumble upon a happy mistake.
Wow.
Sing what?
Spending all your time with you.
Oh, happy birthday. What are we singing?
I don't know.
Sing every song on the album from track 1 down, starting.
Dance.
They just said, sing it.
We go together.
Oh.
Plot twist. It's actually Ryan's voice on Sucker.
The whole time.
Well, thank you guys for
Thank you.
being
You were amazing.
tonight. Oh,
You were fantastic.
Thank you.
You crushed it.
and thank you all for coming out.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.